Janice from La Rue de Fleurs. I want to welcome you back into the studio today to just do a really quick update and note. First of all, I want to say hello to everyone who has subscribed in the past couple weeks. It's thrilling to have you all here and to be receiving such lovely comments, so I appreciate it very much. I am trying to get back to everyone as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. Really enjoying a lot of the feedback, and of course all of the accolades are much appreciated. Very humbling, and I'm very thankful. But I have a lot of things coming up in February, particularly the first week I will be back to teaching. If you're unaware, I do several contracted projects. I work for the Susquehanna Art Museum in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and run a kids art program in conjunction with a local school. So I do a unit every quarter, and February I will have that unit. We do artwork projects based on their current museum exhibits, and that is really awesome, and I love it so much. You can read more about my teaching adventures and some of the different things that I do on the teaching part of the page of my blog if you're interested in learning more about that. I also am currently working with my local arts council to bring another preschool art program into our local preschools in the county that I live in Pennsylvania, and I have 2 classes with another artist next week as well. So I will be busy running here and there and everywhere, and I won't be in the studio very much, but I just wanted to pop in and give you that update. I will possibly have just a quick project review that will go over and kind of wrap up everything that we talked about with the Geometry Dash fabrics, because to that note, this is all I have left other than the pieces that I didn't really cut into and I don't consider really to be scraps, or I already have a plan to put those in my Minky blanket bin. Here's all I have left. I have a few more strips, and then I have a few of these smaller squares that measure, what do they measure? 4.5 by 4.5 about? No, that can't be right. 4 by 4.5. So maybe we'll think of another project that we could do with these guys. Otherwise, they're like a very usable size, or you could cut them down to 3.5 inch squares. And I keep a 3.5 inch square bin back there, as well as 2.5 inch square bin, which I want to say, I just got this OmniGrid little 2.5 inch square ruler guy. I'm probably one of the last people on earth that quilts a lot that doesn't have one of these. I don't know why. I don't buy a lot of gadgety things, although they do save time. I just felt like this would be really helpful since that's a size I often cut for, and I cut kits to make little coaster kits, and I do 2.5 inch squares for those, so I thought it might help me work through some of my scraps, because in the coming months, super exciting news, I will be getting my old kitchen cupboards. We're remodeling our kitchen. I will be getting my old kitchen cupboards and putting them in down here, so I'll have different storage solutions, so I'll have to reorganize everything again. So maybe before that I will do a quick tour of how it's set up, and then after I set it back up I will do a tour for that, because I know people love seeing other people's spaces. I know I do. But today I have a really fun project. We're going to work on another zero waste project using up some of our remaining strips, and of course it's Valentine's Day really soon. It's February, so we're going to sew some hearts. I've also written a blog post about a couple of different heart projects, a little top 5 roundup if you will, and I will link that below if you're interested in some more inspiration to use up some scraps and to make some sweetheart projects for the month of February. So if you're interested in all of that, stay tuned. We're going to do Scrappy heart ornaments coming right up. For today's project, you will need an assortment of your Geometry Dash or other 2-inch strip scraps. You can either sort them into pinks and oranges like I've done here, or you can use them randomly out of your bin, or you can use any colors you want, really. I'm just going to go with the Valentine theme. You'll need some kind of solid fabric or fabric that you want for your backing. You could also do the seamed fabric, but I feel like keeping it simple might be nice. I have just like a cut of kind of a vintage wash pink. You'll need some ribbon that coordinates with the project that you're going to, the colors of your project. I have this pink ribbon. I'm not sure where it came from. I generally grab these up whenever I can find them. You could also use rickrack. That would be really cute as well. You'll need some kind of grid acrylic ruler and something to trim with, your rotary cutters or scissors. You will probably want a piece of paper. We're going to make ourselves a heart template and then cut that out and trace it to make our little hearts on the fabric. And you'll also want some stuffing. I tend to save up bits that I've cut off of quilts around the edges, and then they're great for stuffing small things such as ornaments. You can see my amazing sorting there, ornament stuffing. So to get started, you want to take your fabric strips and just piece them together like we did when we did the quilt as you go. So we're going to try to aim for about a 5 to 6 inch square, and then we will cut out a template of a heart around that. So go ahead and get started piecing all of your strips together to make little squares about 6 by 6, 5 by 5, or 6 by 6, and then we'll come back and get cutting.
Okay, so here I am just kind of randomly picking through the scraps that I have, and like I said, I'm just going to continue the same rule from when we did the quilt as you go tote and try not to have the same fabrics touching. I think just have fun with it, kind of freestyle, improv it, and get a nice mix of all of the fabrics so you have a lot of visual interest in your final heart. And then I'm just periodically checking in with my size template to make sure that I'm at least covering that area.
So there I have created several strips that are approximately the width of my card here that's going to be my template. And then I am going to join them together. So it'll end up being slightly shorter than the card, which I think will be fine. We can always go back and modify that. And of course, some of this will get cut off because our heart will not be quite that big, but I think that's just a good way to plan it so that you have plenty, and then you can center your template around it. Again, I just tried to follow the principle of not really having anything that was the same touching.
And then once I had all of my strips to about the length that I wanted, I sort of laid them out again, thinking about spacing out the colors, and attached them together to fill up that square size that we'll put our template on top of.
To create the heart template, I'm just going to fold my little piece of 6 by 6 card in half and do the very technical making half of a heart on a piece of card. So I'm just going to sort of sketch out what I want half of my heart to look like. And then remember that the other side will just be a mirror. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out, and then that will be the template that I place on my piece of fabric. And I might need to add another row here yet, but we can do that quick too. Okay, I've gone ahead and added a 4th row, so that's 4 2-inch by random length strips. And I have my template that I made on my card that measures about, let's see, it's like 5 1/4 by, about 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. You can make yours really any size you like. And I am just going to go ahead and place my template on the back of my fabrics and then trace around there. And this will be the line I sew on. So it will end up being closer to 5 inches because I will come in on that 1/4 inch mark. And then you want to just make some indication too for yourself where you can leave an approximately 2 inches to be able to turn it out, stuff it, and then close it back up once you've stuffed everything. So you can mark that in any way you want. I recommend picking one of the long flat sides. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark for myself about there. Then I'll be able to get my fingers in with the stuffing. So I'll hold that up so you can see. So I'm just going to leave myself a little indication there
to backstitch and leave that area open. So I have that traced onto my fabric. And then I am just going to line it up on my backing fabric, right sides together. I did end up having to put my strips together, so I think I'll just go ahead and line that up on the center seam and leave myself a little wiggle room on the sides, but I can get rid of some of the rest of this. And I am just going to sew right along the outline here, starting and stopping, leaving that gap. And you can put a pin in there if that makes you feel better. Oh, I also want to add my ribbon. So I'm going to add a cut of ribbon inside of the heart before I sew it. So let's see, what size loop would we like to have? I don't think it needs to be too big. How long is that? That looks good. Let's see, what length? That is about 6 inches. So I'm going to put about 6 inches in there. So it'll be about 3 inches long. That should be good enough to hang it onto something. And I'm going to put that right at the top of my heart, facing down in the inside. So finding where that area is, and then I am going to place my heart, my cord in there, making sure that it comes up over that. Okay, so we can pin that in place. You know what, it might be easier to just go ahead and sew that on first, where I can pay a little bit more attention to it and then sew around, or you could cut your heart out and then sew around it. Okay, truth time. Before I cut it open, I am going to look in there and make sure, I'm going to tug on my ribbon and make sure it got caught, which it did. So there's the tails on the other side of my seam. And I hope you saw that I did back stitch up there where the ribbons were as well, just so they're extra secured. And now I'm just going to cut out my shape, leaving about 1/4 inch. So just cut that away. And I'm going to come in really tight here to the point, but make sure that you're not cutting into your stitches. But that way we'll get that nice crisp point. So we're going to come in a little bit closer. And I'm going to also trim off a little bit down here, right below my point down there. And then maybe add a few notches, a little couple wedges up here. Make sure that you don't cut into your stitches, but cut really close to them. That just eases the fabric around that curve so that you get those nice curves that you sewed. So I'm just going to do that on both sides of the rounded tops of our heart. And then we should be good to turn it. So I'm just going to reach in there and flip everything around. And then I have a little skewer stick that I use to help me poke into the points and finish pushing out around the seams. There is my ribbon. I don't love that placement on there. It's gonna hang a little tiny bit crooked, but that's okay. I think maybe next time I'll have to explore maybe cutting the heart out so I can see a little bit better where that's gonna hang, but I don't know. It's kind of charmingly askew. I'm gonna go with it. And so now I'm going to take it over to my iron and to give it a little press, make sure that this fabric is all tucked under so that when I go to sew it closed, I have a nice crisp seam there to sew on, and then we will stuff it up. So So here are all my batting scraps, still with little trimmings of quilts on them. But I think that this is a wonderful way to use up scraps of batting. I stuff a lot of little ornaments this way. And yeah, it's a great way to use things up, not throw anything in the garbage can. Make them all do double duty. So just go ahead and use your fingers to work the stuffing down into the corners. Here it is all nice and fluff stuffed. And that would have been a great place to put my tag if I had remembered. So sometimes there's a little troubleshooting when you're just winging it or trying something for the first time, and I think that that's fine. Like I said, for my ribbon next time, maybe I'll cut the heart out first and leave myself that 1/4 inch. I'll cut the heart out a 1/4 inch around my template so that when I do sew it, I already have that outline, and then I'll know better and I could stitch the ribbon onto it first. But for this one, I think it's fine. I don't think it's going to cause it to not be adorable. This would also be a great sachet. So if you wanted to stuff like some dried lavender or eucalyptus in there, that could be fabulous. If you made it in purple and then you could tie a little bundle of dried herbs on the front of it too and give that as a gift, that would be so pretty. Anyway, next I'm going to take and use some coordinating thread to stitch up my seam with a little ladder stitch, and then it will be all done. So for the ladder stitch, I don't know if you can see that, I've come up through the back with my needle and thread, and I have my knot underneath of a stitch back here inside, so you won't see that. And then I come up next to where my last machine stitch was, and I go across and then underneath. So I'm coming out there, and then I'm bringing my needle over and I'm going in through here, and I'm trying to stay on the crease that I made with the iron, which should line up with the other seam that I sewed with my machine here. So I'm just catching my stitches right across that line on either side, going back and forth, creating the little rungs of a ladder. And then when I pull it all tight, you won't see that stitch at all. So just try to keep them evenly spaced. And you can see I'm going across from that, and then I'm coming across here. I'm going to go in and under a little bit there. And then when I pull it, you see they just disappear into that seam. So that's how I like to finish it, so you can't even see that it was there. And then when I get down here, I'll come up underneath one of these stitches that I did with the machine and wrap my knot around it, and then sink my needle down in and hide it behind all of this and pull it out and cut it off, and you won't be able to see it at all, okay? So that just takes a little practice, and you don't need to worry. Most people don't look that closely at the things that you make. So it's more for you just trying to have it be finished the way that you appreciate it being finished. Because most other people don't notice that stuff. It's just the makers in us. We're often much harder on ourselves than anybody else. And there you have it, a very cute little heart, puffy heart stuffed, made completely from scraps, ready to gift I love it. That's really sweet. So I might go add a couple stitches back up here to secure that a little bit more. And like I said, rethink that for the future, but otherwise quite adorable. Thank you for joining me today, friends. Stay creative.